Okay. Good evening, family. We're back again with the Journey 2020. As we say on the Journey 2020, the journey is from me to you and from you to me. This is Dr. John Robertson, licensed psychologist here in Orlando, Florida. I have to call it Wet Orlando this evening because we've been having rain for literally, Charles, what is it, the last 2 days, pretty much on a solid basis?
Well, it's kind of making up because, we've had a very dry season. So I think we're trying to make up, and to me, it's a very good thing.
Well, I'm glad you think it's good. I'm just wet.
Well, you know what? Based on Mother Nature and what we need, it probably need to rain a couple of more days.
I hear you. But compared to the rest of the country, I think we're in pretty good shape, actually.
Right.
And the gentleman talking with us is our co-host on the journey, Mr. Charles Morse.
Hello, and welcome to the Journey 2020. Like you said, I'm Charles Morse. And first of all, we want to say, we need to say happy birthday. See, he thought he was going to get away with that, but today is his birthday, and now, unfortunately, I can't sing, but I would sing
Thank goodness.
Well, yeah, I would sing happy birthday to you, but I just want to say happy birthday and wishing you many, many, many more. All right.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. I truly appreciate it. It's funny, when my mother was alive and my birthday came around, I would say every birthday to my mom, I would say thank you, because I said, in coming into the world, you did the work. I just happened to show up. So if anybody should celebrate, sometimes when you think of your birthday, also think of your mom, what she went through, and these days also think of your dad, because there are many dads who fall out, in the delivery room just with the excitement of the whole birth process.
I actually had a gentleman tell me that story. He actually, his wife was delivering over in Daytona. He got the call while he was here in Orlando. And he said he probably made it from the time that he got the call to Daytona, and probably right at 30 minutes. So it's at least a 45 to a 50-minute drive.
At least, yes.
So he said he made it there from that time in about 30 minutes. And when he pulled up to the hospital, he said a muffler was basically hanging off the car. He said that's how hard he drove and how fast he drove. And he jumped out the car. He ran up just in time to fall out. And the wife had delivered the baby, and he woke up and she was holding his hand and asking him if he was okay. And they was bringing him orange juice, and they was nurturing him more than he was his wife. Right. And she had delivered the baby.
Exactly. So we'll give a shout out to the dads too in the process.
Yeah, all the pressure that they're under.
Exactly.
That's funny. Exactly. But it's a true story. But again, happy birthday.
Thank you. Tonight, you all may wonder, usually we have the couch pretty well full, and tonight I get to sit on the couch because we had have two guests that may be on their way, and I say maybe because one, Miss Ida Starks, who was going to talk to us about HIV/AIDS and her experience, had a fender bender, and unfortunately is on her way. I hope she'll get here. She said that the police were just talking to her at that point. And the other person that was to join us was Raj Harilal. And Raj was waiting for clearance from the health department as is protocol, so that it would be okay for him to appear. So depending on what happens, family, you may have the wonderful experience of Charles and I tonight. You'll have us up close, personal, and intimate.
Okay. Well, let me go into my my reporter's mode here then.
Uh-oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, folks, this is dangerous, but we're going to see what happens here. Okay.
Okay. Let's go back to the idea and the concept of when you started in working with the National Black AIDS HIV Awareness Day. Let's go back and how that started.
Okay. That really is an interesting story, and it gives me an opportunity to talk about a gentleman I like to think of as a mentor, and that is Dr. Benny Prim.
Okay.
Dr. Prim had opened a alcohol and drug recovery center in Brooklyn, and from all information that I have, it was the first organized, medically and psychologically organized program for alcohol and drug abusers in New York City. And if my memory serves me right, this was in the mid-60s, early 70s. But at any rate, throughout his career, Benny, who was a physician, is a physician, saw in the late 70s and early 80s an interesting phenomenon. He saw many individuals coming in with substance abuse problems, but who seemed to have some kind of a wasting disease going on. And he couldn't figure out what was going on. And at that time, there was various speculations about what this was. They believed that they thought that it was caused by homosexual behavior.
Right.
And it was called the gay disease.
Right. Yeah.
And then they called it GERD. And then after that, when they discovered that there was apparently a virus that was causing this, it began to be known as AIDS. After that, it was then discovered that AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, was actually caused by a virus. And that's how the human immunodeficiency virus, got then named. Well, Benny discovered that many of his IV, intravenous drug abusing patients also had this AIDS or HIV. In his research, he began to then see more and more of these and began to see that it wasn't lifestyle that caused it, that there was a virus that was being passed from person to person.
Okay.
And as we know now about HIV, that it is passed through body fluids and primarily through blood-to-blood contact.
Right.
And blood-to-blood at any place. A lot of people think of homosexual behavior because often in, let's say, gay sexual behavior with anal sex, that the blood vessels in the rectum are very delicate, rupture, and that blood-to-blood contact is relatively easy. Now, but he also discovered that there were many individuals who were not homosexual, that who had were primarily intravenous drug users,
Right.
who seemed to contract HIV by quote-unquote dirty needles,
Right.
needles that had been contaminated through the blood, with blood being drawn up into the hypodermic, and then with that needle and hypodermic then being shared with other intravenous drug users, with them then drawing up the drug and injecting it. But as part of that injection, the contaminated blood was also passed on. So based on that, he then began to be a major campaigner for HIV/AIDS. We also know that the gay community was very active. Such groups as ACT UP, the Gay Men's, and I forgot the full name, I think Gay Men's Liberation, etc., were very politically proactive.
Right.
They also did an interesting thing in the gay community. They began to, if you want to call it, police their own behavior.
Okay.
And began to focus in on practicing safer sex. But I come back to Benny again and how I or a number of black organizations got involved. Benny discovered that through a statistical search, along with a number of other researchers, that in the 1990s, and particularly 1998, that blacks were contracting AIDS at the point of new infections at 1 in every 7 minutes.
Wow.
Okay.
1 in every 7 minutes.
That's
in the United States.
In the United States. In the United States.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And so, just as you were expressing alarm, that's the same thing that happened both with these researchers. They took that information to the Congressional Black Caucus.
Okay.
Okay. The caucus, when they heard those same stats, again, began to say, how is this happening? And we didn't know. Through the advocacy of the Congressional Black Caucus, they were able to garner funds through the Congress to develop a Black AIDS initiative. How I got involved was that the same Benny Prim appeared at a conference, an international conference, and challenged a group of us and said, there is a devastation occurring in our community, and we're sitting back and not doing anything about it.
Right.
And so a number of us, got a little defensive and said, wait a minute, we're doing some important work here. And he said, yes, you are, but you're not doing enough, and you're not doing the kind of things to stop this HIV/AIDS epidemic. So a bunch of us then were either found out about or actually through word of mouth applied and got some funds from the Centers for Disease Control. And at the time it was known as a Black AIDS Initiative. Well, starting out, we were doing such things as public awareness campaigns, community mobilization, testing campaigns, etc. But we still felt that there was not enough within the limitations of those grants to really make a difference. So a number of organizations got together, and I was involved in that initial effort. And we said, we need to create something like a civil rights movement for HIV/AIDS for our Black community. We then, with almost no funds, identified about 7 cities that we wanted to do public awareness campaigns. And so it started in 2001, actually, that we then developed the National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. And we had a longer name for it then, and I don't remember exactly.
It's funny because I think I can remember something like that a while back. Now, I don't know, but I think I think there was something when I first started working with you on it. I think they were back and forth on the name for like a website.
Yes.
And one organization had a name for a website, then another one had a name for a website, but I know it was this long name, and they were trying to trying to figure out which name and which but I do remember something, not necessarily that, I guess, now that I think about it. But I do remember it was one website that was trying to work with another website, and then one went down, and it was, but okay.
Well, actually, what you're talking about did occur, but that was a little bit later. Okay.
Okay.
That was a bit later. Okay.
Okay.
So, and so Many people don't know that there were these organizations
Right.
that had been, fighting HIV/AIDS, in prevention
Right.
for many years. So we started out the first year, 7 cities, and what was amazing is that in sending out the information, we got responses from literally across the country.
Right.
And the second year, we were able to test a greater number of individuals. Till about the 4th year, we were then able to get, at that time, the statistics that we were able to garner said that in or around the day, that there were about 6,000 individuals that were being tested for HIV/AIDS on or around Black AIDS Day. Now, one of the interesting things was that many individuals in the community, as well as many individuals in the gay rights struggle and in the AIDS community, said, well, why do we need a Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day? Because AIDS doesn't discriminate against black, whites, etc. And we said, no, the virus doesn't discriminate, but we know that blacks, although we are just 12% of the population, at the time, and these statistics have stayed disconcertingly high.
Right.
That at the time we were something like 67 or so percent of the cases of HIV/AIDS. So he said, how is it that 12% of the population, 67 or so percent of the HIV/AIDS cases? So of course, Charles, and you probably remember this, there were all kinds of theories that came up at the time and saying that AIDS was the mad white scientist creation.
Well, I was going to get to that. That was one of my questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to get to that, but yeah. Well, actually, I was going to ask that question because it had been discussed or talked about that something that was created in a lab that supposed to have been tested and given to person of color or something in reference to a monkey.
Right.
So I have no idea, but I'll say it like this right here. Whether or not it would go back to the Tuskegee
experiment, right? Yes. Yeah.
Are the people in this world and how we are, whether or not it's just some people getting off a ship, seeing some people over there minding their business in their arrogance or whatever it is, the superiority or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But it does make you kind of go,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and my question was, where do you think, as far as the research, where do you think it came from? The actual virus itself.
I'm going to give you a very definitive answer.
And I'm asking for your own personal, this is your own personal. Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. For somebody scientifically trained, that is very humbling to respond. I don't know. My sense is that there have been many viruses, and viruses are tricky little things that are infinitely adaptable. You know that now with things like what is it? The antibacterials that the penicillins and the various varieties, that the bacteria are evolving to be able to be resistant to that. With viruses, they seem to be even more complex. So, to answer your question, I think that HIV has probably been around for a long time, and that we have seen viruses, the scientists call it, jumping species, where they will evolve from infecting animals to infecting people.
Right.
So I think that HIV as a virus evolved, and I think, and we do know that there have been HIV-like viruses that exist in animals, but that don't affect us. But there have been other, disease entities or viruses that before did not affect us, but now seem to.
No,
Okay.
but I also think that it shows just how close we are in the sense of when you think that something over here can affect you or something over there can affect you, but you see how it has spread it worldwide and everywhere.
Exactly.
But we like to think that we're, well, because I live here and there's no way, and I don't associate with these people.
Right.
I think time and life has shown that that's just your ignorance and your arrogance, or your ignorance supersedes your arrogance, or vice versa, however you want to say it.
Okay.
But
that was eloquent, my brother. Okay, go on now.
But it just goes to show you how life is, in that we're not as far away from each other as we like to think we are, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
I think that's the point. And I want to, we have had in our community so many theories come up, that this, again, this was the creation of a mad scientist, and there was a story that was going around that there was a South African scientist that had a vial of deadly viruses and germs, etc., and that somehow this got out, or the United States did this, etc. The interesting thing about HIV is, although it is affecting our black population so much more than the whites or Hispanics, etc., but there are very few people on this planet that are immune to HIV infection, given exposure to the virus itself.
Right.
So I would say that if it was the creation of a mad white scientist, then he did a lousy job, because it's doing in his own people.
Right.
Okay. And so again, the answer with me, as I don't know, I would say that anyone that wants to should do the research to find out as much as they can. But even more important right now is our stopping this thing. Okay. The thing about HIV, and two things that are really interesting, is that outside the human body, it's an extremely fragile virus.
Okay.
On its own, let's say in the air, on a surface or something like that, within a day or two, it'll die. Okay.
Okay.
But once it gets inside the body, it literally is a monster. Okay. Because at times, and I say this to young people who think that HIV infection is no biggie, that HIV and the scientists are having a difficult time with this, that HIV can literally hide in cells or parts of cells, to the point where years later, after the individual gets to a point where the HIV infection is or the HIV is down to near zero, it still can lie in the cells and re-emerge.
Okay.
So we have a virulent virus once in the body.
Okay.
That was one thing. The second part of it is that HIV infection is 100% preventable.
Okay.
Okay? And by that, I mean that if we don't engage in certain behaviors that the likelihood of HIV is infection is very, very low. And we have your featured guest. Hi, Ida.
Good evening.
Actually, if you can move over a little bit, move over next to him, and kind of mic her up a little bit.
Let me give you a hug. All right.
Good evening.
Okay.
Good evening.
Okay, very good. I told them a little bit of how and why.
Actually, you can use that mic right there.
Okay. How and why you were delayed. So again, I'm just glad that you're here. Exactly. Thank God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have been having a good conversation, but I must say, we were missing a major part of the conversation, and that is that the folks have something better to look at than looking at me. Okay.
I don't know. After my day, I don't know how good I'm looking right now.
So you're looking just wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Once again, just glad to be here. And thank you for having me.
I just have to do a brief introduction, Ida, and then I'm going to put you to work right away.
No problem.
And that is, Miss Ida Starks is a native Orlandan, born, raised, bred here in Orlando. She went to elementary school, high school, in the area. Married, had a child. Okay, is a woman of faith.
Absolutely.
Okay, is not the kind of person who hangs out, in bars, or on corners.
Correct.
Or in places where folks use drugs, or in engaging in, I'll just call it shaky behavior.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
And I'm going to let Ida tell her story in a little bit, but I have to say that with Ida, if you were to know her, you would know that this is someone who you could depend on both as a friend and as someone who, in the way that she presents herself, is someone who you would want to know just because of her spirit. So with that, Ida, I'm going to let you tell a little bit about yourself.
All right. Thank you for that warm welcome, Dr. Robertson. Again, I am Ida Henson Starks, born and raised here in Orlando, graduate of Jones High School.
Oh, go Tigers!
All right. Went away to Tuskegee University for a couple of years, and I returned home. And again, thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here tonight. My story is a little different. Born and raised in the church. I've never done drugs. I've never sold my body. I've never hung out in a street club. Was never a clubber. However, not quite 14 years ago, I was diagnosed with HIV. Through that diagnosis, I share with you, has been a learning experience. It has brought me in contact with some people that I may have never met had the disease not come upon me. I've never pointed my finger at any one particular person as it relates to this disease. As you mentioned, I've been married. I've been married a couple of times. Likewise, I'm divorced. Have a son, 7 years old. The blessing of my marriage was my son, is my son, and to share just a little piece of that story. Ex-husband and I both diagnosed positive. However, the miracle is our 7-year-old son is HIV negative.
Oh,
so that's a blessing. That's a blessing. Wanted to come on just to let people know that this disease has no age, no race, no gender, no color, no creed, doesn't have a religious background. Society wants to put a stigma on who would contract this disease. Yes. It can happen to anybody. and I need the public to know that it can happen to anybody. It can happen to someone who's in the grocery store, someone who's on the church pew, somebody who's in the church choir, someone who's working with you. And no longer can you look at someone and tell whether they're HIV positive or have an AIDS diagnosis. Some people think that this disease look a certain way. But I want the community to know that this is the new face of HIV. And we have to be so very careful because you don't know who it is that you're coming in contact with. It's so very important that everyone gets tested. Everyone needs to know their status, regardless of your relationship or how long you've been in your relationship. If you're not a Siamese twin and can go everywhere your partner goes, then you need to know. You need to know. You need to get tested, and that's my message.
I wanted to ask you, you said so many very important things. A number of people, as you said, you don't know who you come into contact with.
Correct.
Some people are literally afraid of being in the same room with someone who is HIV positive, or afraid to touch that HIV positive person, or afraid if the person sneezes that they're going to catch it. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. You need to know, and I use this often, each and every one of us have been to Golden Corral.
Sure enough. Okay. For our international audience, because we do have folks that listen outside the country. Golden Corral is one of the all-you-can-eat restaurants
buffet.
In the buffet in the U.S. That's
Smorgasbord, absolutely.
Right.
You went back then.
And it tends to be very popular with our community because you can get a good meal and full up without having to break your budget.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine. That's fine. The reason I mentioned that is we don't know who preceded us in eating off the fork, from the plate, drinking out of the cup. We don't know who that was before us. However, people are afraid once you disclose your diagnosis to them, when they know what your status is, then all of a sudden they become fretful or frightened of you.
Right, okay.
But we sit down at Golden Corral and we eat behind people that we don't know. So if you put that into perspective and you think about that, you don't know who it is that you're coming in contact with. This is not a disease that I can touch you and pass it along. This is not a disease that I can hug you and pass it along. This is not a disease that I can even go to the bathroom behind you and pass it along. So very important that we are educated on this. There was the myth out that you could get bitten by a mosquito and this disease. You can share a kiss and this disease. None of that is true. Again, all of those are myths. So just make sure that the education, and we're doing the best that we can to put this education out here to let people know that that is not the transmission of HIV/AIDS. Yes.
And I just want to pause and just mention about the National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day, and that's the particular goal of National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day, to have our community get educated about HIV, get tested, get treated, if need be, and also then to get involved, in fighting this battle against HIV/AIDS. So I just want to put that in there.
Absolutely, and I will share with the community of listeners that we have tonight. One thing I feel, having been diagnosed 14 years ago, there was a time that I was afraid to share, concerned about rejection, the stigma being out there, and thinking, as quite a few people still think today that I would be rejected and no one would love me, no one would want to be around me. One thing I have learned over the 14 years, an older lady shared with me about 13 years ago, you don't tell everybody, you tell those you can help and those who can help you. And I am learning that for every one person that I share with my status, the burden is lighter for me. No longer am I weighed down with it. Now you and even the community by internet is helping me to carry this load, and it lightens it quite a bit.
That is so important, Ida. Now, a lot of people, we were talking about some of the history of HIV and the history of the National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. I remember back in the day where you had to have a cocktail at times of 14, 15 pills a day in order to to control HIV. I know things have changed quite a bit. You want to just talk about that a bit?
Yes, things have changed quite a bit. I am blessed. The cocktails are still out there, but I am blessed. I am on one pill once a day. And that has come a long way from years ago where people were taking 30 pills a day, 15 in the morning, 15 at night, or, splitting them up. But this is a manageable disease now. This is a manageable disease. You can live just like everybody else, a wholesome life. Right quick, I'll share, and I think it's important that people know. Maybe someone is viewing that may have known me several years ago, and I look quite different today than I did about 2 years ago. My son wanted to play basketball and football and wanted to be in the church choir and wanted to do karate, and I was over 300 pounds.
Wow.
And I made a decision after my divorce that I needed to do something not only for my son to be able to continue to be active with him, but for health purposes so that I could be around here to enjoy him. I was on 5 blood pressure pills and 1 HIV pill.
Wow.
The balance wasn't there. I talked to my medical providers in all aspects, my infectious disease doctor, my primary care doctor, my OBGYN, and all of them agreed that my health was stable, that my status and my health was stable enough that I qualified for weight loss surgery. And after a lot of prayer, a lot of sleepless nights.
I can imagine.
But I did make the decision, and on March 13th of 2012, I had weight loss surgery, and I have gone from 300 pounds to a happy 160 pounds today.
Wow.
And I
Wonderful.
share that for several reasons. One is to share what a blessing it was to be afforded the surgery. But the other reason I wanted to share that, and I make sure and let people know, I had been absent from my place of worship for a little while, had been visiting, and when I went back and had lost maybe about 100 pounds, people greeted me, and I'm sure they were genuine. They were glad to see me back. But the first question I would get is, are you okay? Because their mindset was, you must have been sick, because they knew my status. And because I had lost the weight, they assumed that the weight had come off due to
the
illness.
HIV. Okay.
Due to illness. So I make sure and let people know, one, that I can do the same thing anybody else can do. I'm just living with a disease.
Right.
And all of us, if we really think about it, all of us have something. Mine just happened to have the letters HIV.
Okay.
Yours might be different. Yours might be different. Yours might be different.
Exactly.
And I just made some decisions of what was going to be best for me and my family, and that was to do the surgery. And I am very pleased to say that here I sit today, a happy 106, healthy 160 pounds.
All right.
And in addition to that, I want to say, of the 14 years of diagnosis, I have been undetectable.
Wonderful.
12 of the 14 years. They have not found the virus for 12 years.
I don't, a lot of people may not understand when you say undetectable what that really is. Do you want to describe what that is?
Yes. Undetectable means that the virus is not found in a baseline blood draw.
Okay.
Okay. The antibodies are still there. If they probe deeper, I am not cured.
Okay.
I am not cured. And a lot of people think, well, I want to put Magic Johnson in here.
Yeah, I was about to ask you.
I want to
Okay.
put Magic
All
in
right.
here right now. People feel that because of Magic's money, that's the reason he looks the way he looks. That's the reason he's doing as well as he's doing. Well, I share with you tonight, I don't have much money. At least I don't have Magic's money. I don't have Magic's money.
Right.
But I don't do anything different than Magic does. Magic is adherent to his regimen. He takes his meds.
Okay.
I take my meds. No matter how good I feel, I take my meds because, again, that is very important to fighting this disease, is being adherent to my regimen.
You know, that's so important, and I want to generalize out from HIV. One of the things about folks in our community is that often we get into treatment late, and last, and literally at times when we're half dead. And then when we get to feeling better, and that same, adherence, we'll say, okay, I'm doing better. Okay, so I don't need to take all of that medicine, etc. I don't need to follow, that diet. I don't need to change my lifestyle so I'm more active. And what you're saying is that the thing that you feel that has helped you, not that you just feel, but that we know keeps people in the best of health, is just what you said, and that is that adherence to that lifestyle, medical, and habit regimen. And
that's in anything we do. I'll go back to my weight loss. Yes, the doctors did me a favor by taking 85% of my stomach. I'm not able to intake as much anymore. However, the stomach is a muscle that can stretch. And if I am not adherent to my diet, in a few short years, I can be back where I came from. So we were speaking of HIV/AIDS, but that is with anything that we do. If we don't follow a regimen and do what we need to do to stay on the right path, we can fall back into old habits.
Old habits, okay.
And it could be detrimental to us.
Okay.
Go
ahead, Charles.
No. I was going to say we probably should introduce her to Pam.
Yes.
She's going like, who's
Pam?
Okay, but Charles, go ahead. Go ahead.
Pam is an expert and very good into a raw food diet.
Okay.
And she cooks these fabulous meals because once she explains to you about the importance of eating raw foods versus the foods that we do eat, it plays a big contribution into diseases, sickness, and all the things that we go through as far as obesity, and because our bodies are really not made to to digest most of the stuff that we eat. So as she said, if you look on the box, and if you can't pronounce it, there's a problem.
You don't need to put it in your body.
Right, because your body cannot digest it. And if it's not grown from something from the earth and you're eating it, then you're doing yourself a disfavor. So that's
and I can say to you, after that surgery and having to learn to digest and eat food all over again, it's my mother just had hip replacement surgery, and I've gone through therapy and watched her learn how to walk again. I went through the same thing when I had surgery. I had to learn to eat again. And believe it or not, some of those things that I used to eat that I enjoyed so very much that caused me to be 300 pounds, no longer does my body allow me to digest those things anymore. So that tells you that my body had become acclimated and accustomed to accepting some of that stuff that was not good for me.
For you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I want to go back a little bit, excuse me, and talk a little bit about finding out you had become infected with HIV. That is very important because sometimes in our community, folks will say, "Well, I may be infected, but I don't really want to know." Okay, or the other thing is, well, something's going to kill you at some point, so why should I, go through this? And no, the reason I say that is that so many of our folks in our community don't know their status, okay? And well, firstly, why is it important to know your status, and what was it like for you once you found out what your status was?
It was devastating. I can't take that away. I can't take that piece away. It was devastating. I received a phone call that I needed to go to get checked for something else from a partner of mine, that I needed to go and get checked for something else. They had been diagnosed, and they had been diagnosed with another STD, syphilis, and encouraged me to go and get checked. Well, I did. I went to the Orange County Health Department, Lila Mitchell, out on Raleigh Street here in Orlando, and went in and told them that a partner had called and said I needed to be checked for syphilis. Well, they offered the full gamut of tests, and I said, well, since you're taking my blood, sure, that's not a problem. Test me for everything. And they did, and 2 weeks later, I received a telephone call. Well, even at 44 years old, I've never had chickenpox, I've never had measles, I've never had mumps, I've had bronchitis, and I've had asthma. So when I got a call to come get my test results, I thought nothing of it.
Right.
You take a test, you get results. I'd always had my private physician, but because this person had been tested through the Orange County Health Department, I went to the Orange County Health Department to be tested. So when they called for me to come get my test results, I went to get results. And when I walked in, did the necessary paperwork, the counseling and testing person sat down with me, and he said, Ms. Henson, I have good news and bad news. What do you want first? And I said, well, give me the good news. He says, well, the syphilis test in which you initially came in for came back negative. You do not have syphilis. So immediately a smile came across my face. Well, good. That was what I was there for.
Right.
Exactly. That was. But then if that was the good news, what would be the bad news? And his response to me, as though it was yesterday, he said, there's no good way or bad way, right way or wrong way to tell you this. But along with the syphilis test, you know that we ran other tests, and the HIV test that we ran came back positive. I remember becoming as one with that chair that I was sitting in, because that was not what I went for. That was totally, totally unexpected. And this was in 2000. I had lost a very close family member in 1993 to the disease. And all I knew about the disease was death. So as I sat there in the chair, he excused himself, gave me a few moments, totally distraught. He came back, he handed me my test results, asked me, was there anything I wanted to say or any questions? And of course you sit there going, what is there to say? You don't know where to start, you don't know where to end. I took that test result, he handed me a bag of condoms. He offered a bag of condoms, and I took them. And as I walked out of the door of the health department, the first trash can I saw, I dumped all of it. Test results, condoms, and all. And I went to my car, and I sat in my car for the next couple of hours, because you don't know where to go. You don't know what to do. You don't know who to turn to. You don't know what to say when you get there. And I remember it was a late evening. I was there around 5. It was a late evening for the clinic. And when I came to myself, if you will, I realized that people were getting off from work. It was now 7 o'clock. And the first thing I worried about was, okay, these people have given me a diagnosis. They go think that I'm sitting out here in the parking lot waiting on somebody to come out. So I slid down in my seat in the car going, I don't want them to think that I'm sitting here waiting on anybody to come out. And the truth is, at that time, I did not immediately get into care. Again, not knowing where to turn, not knowing who to turn to, because now as a counselor and tester myself, I know that there were things that he explained to me, but right after I heard positive, I shut down.
Yeah.
I heard nothing else.
But what's amazing to me is, as I'm listening to your story, it's just mind-boggling that could happen, and they tell you what they tell you, then he gave you what he gave you, then he walked away. That, to me, that's more mind-boggling than anything.
Well, and again, I say to you, he gave me information to go and get the necessary help that I needed.
Okay.
One thing he didn't do, in which we do today, and I'll pause right here and say that I am abundantly blessed. Today I work for the Florida Department of Health in Orange County, and I sit as a supervisor over 3 programs. And I had a meeting today, and I shared with some upper level management how blessed I am to be able to occupy the seat that I sit in. I am the supervisor of the TOPWA program, which stands for Target Outreach for Pregnant Women. I also am a supervisor, program manager over the family support workers, which are our peers, people who are also living with this disease. I also sit as the supervisor over the testing and counselors. They're at the Orange County Health Department.
What I want to know is, when do you sleep?
I don't know, but when you find it, will you call me?
My goodness.
It is.
Wow.
It is. It can be overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
But my relaxation comes in knowing that I'm helping somebody. I am sitting in the seat on the other side of the desk, but I used to occupy the chair on the opposite side, and I am able to give back. It was after I went through training that it started to come back to me. Those things that I tuned out after he said positive, that he did give me a place to go, somebody to see, somebody to talk to.
But my common sense is telling me that you're not going to hear any of that. At that point and at that time, you're not going to hear any of that. That's what my common sense right here is telling me.
At all.
So for him to come out and then that's it. That, to me, that's weird.
And send you on your way.
Right.
And send you on your way. You don't know whether you're sending a person out to commit suicide.
Right.
To commit murder.
Right.
To not to get into care.
Because you're going through so many emotions.
Absolutely.
You don't know if you're starting to hate yourself. You don't know if you're starting to hate somebody. You don't know if you don't know where a person is mentally, emotionally.
Absolutely.
None of that. So it's just that, to me, that's mind-boggling.
And today I have a hand in how to handle that, because anyone that counsels test a person and that person comes back reactive, immediately they are to link them before that person gets out of that chair. They link them with a peer, someone who will hold their hand, who will guide them, who will, and you have to understand, to get a diagnosis like that, you may shut down and say, I don't want to talk to nobody, I don't want to see anybody, and that's fine. But we at least present ourselves, give you a business card, let you know that I am here, even if you walk out of the door right now, because we've gotten all of your information. In the next 48 hours, my peer has a responsibility to contact that person, let them know that we are here. Check on them. See how they're doing.
Okay.
If we don't contact them in 48 hours, we're going out to check on them.
Okay. Now,
Different from what happened 14 years ago. Absolutely.
Now, is that done across the country in HIV testing, or is that just here in Florida or
that is something that Ida has coined in her program. I cannot promise you that that is going on, but the plus of being positive, sitting here and having had a diagnosis presented to me, just as you've said, I know what I should have gotten or would have wanted sitting on the opposite side of that table, even though I didn't know where to go and who to turn to. If I just would have had someone that day to let me know that they cared.
You know, that's so important because often healthcare professionals are not trained in that maintaining that human contact.
Right.
And often will give that diagnosis, spend a few minutes, and then basically, as you said, send you on your way. And I think that maintenance of connection and contact is one of the critical things in getting through that initial shock, that initial sense of alienation and isolation. So what you are doing, I think, is so important for the community to know that if they are diagnosed, that they are not going to be alone.
No.
And I would say that if we have health professionals who are listening, that getting in touch with you, and just in terms of your experience, I think would be extremely helpful.
Well, two things. She leaves me her information, so when we post it, the information will be there. The number or email address, or if there's a website. But we got 3 minutes to finish up, so if you want to give any information about the
yes, we had loads of information
so we
give.
Got 3 minutes. but actually, I think we should have her back because
no, absolutely, we're going to have to do some follow-ups on this because we're also we had invited Raj to be here, but he was trying to get clearance, etc. You know, but that's a whole nother story. But I just want to say to the family, to our audience, that this Friday, February 7th, is National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day. And information is on the national website, www.nationalblackaidsday.org. Again, nationalblackaidsday.org. You can get a tremendous amount of information there. Contact with my nonprofit is available, the Multicultural Addictions Network. We also are going to post Ida's information so that you can get some more information. And for folks who are in our local area, please come out. We're having a gospel gala at the Pine Hills Performing Arts Center. We had to have a location change. That is going to be Friday afternoon and Friday evening from 4 to 8. There is going to be gospel choirs. We're going to be having HIV testing. The counselors are going to be following the protocol that Ida talked about. We're going to have food. It is going to be an uplifting event. And it's going to be, as they say, a party with a purpose, where we want to get the community out, about, get tested, to know your status, because we know that if you know your status, the likelihood is that you are not going to pass HIV/AIDS on. That's a fact from all of the research that has been there. And I'm going to give Ida the last word, as she has joined us tonight.
Again, thank you for having me. We do want you to come out and get tested. You will leave with your test results. I think it's important that you know you will leave with your test results. We're doing 15-minute test, and you will know your status when you leave us. Again, I thank you for having me today.
Okay, and I'm going to have to we also have the testing being done by the Miracle of Love a mobile van. And that will be in 3 different areas around Orlando. on that day, including our site. So I promised I'd give them a shout out so that they know that they're appreciated. So Miracle of Love, you're on now. February 7th, you're going to be in Apopka. You're going to be in 2 areas in Orlando. So community, come on out. It's all free. So with that, I want to say again, this is another edition of the Journey 2020. And we like to say, the journey is from me to you and from you to me. Good night, and Ida, thank you.
Thank
Charles,
you.
thank you.